Howdy do. In this lesson, we're going to focus on wood. We're going to be using a couple different pieces of paper because we'll be making two pieces, and we'll be using our Sharpie again. And thinking back to the video that you just watched with that piece of wood and all those bands that go around inside of the trunk of a tree, we're going to do that first. So we start with the dot. That's that first band. And then a little band around that, and a little band around that. And thinking back to the video, did you notice how those bands weren't perfectly circle? I mean, they were circles, right? But they're not perfect. They were kind of wonky and wobbly, depending on what was happening with the tree. It might have some funny shapes in there. So we don't need to worry about our circles being just perfect. They don't need to be super uniform in terms of the amount of space between the bands. Just let your pen flow and enjoy the process. One thing I like to do is not choke up on the pen, but hold it at the very, very end so that I have a little bit less control over those circles. It just kind of helps it float naturally without being too precise. And that aids us well while we're making this wood. And we are just about done with our Sharpie work here and our bands on that wood. And the next thing I like to do is just inside the wood band, put some water. Doesn't have to fill it up completely, but just mushing some water around there and then adding some watercolor and just let it flow naturally. We've put that water down on top of your drawing. And then once that water's there and you just kind of dip in the pigment, it naturally kind of takes off and absorbs into that water. So I like to just add a little bit of color. I'm not even going to fill up this whole circle. Okay, as our wood spiral dries, let's take a look at this ponderosa pine here. And this is that tree we were talking about that has those puzzle pieces. Kind of like the backside better. Well, I guess that's kind of like the inverted. It's not exactly the same because it's a different layer, but this is more, has like topography to it. And this is smoother. So I'm wondering which one do we want to use as our muse? Let's use that as our muse. Look at that nice piece. Let's use that as our starting. Okay, maybe we'll even trace it. Whoops, sorry little guy. I've never done it this way before. This is a spur of the moment decision. Okay. I'll just clean that up, but there's one piece. I'm just going to go ahead and start putting down whatever I feel is right. They're all going to intersect. See how they all come together. So we just need to make sure that all these weird little shapes that we're making butt up to each other. All right, so what do you think of that? Okay, so now if we want, we can bring in a few more light layers here and there just for interest, or small circles here and there. These are kind of like the little nicks that are in the tree or the bark. And this is about it for the neurographic part of the ponderosa pine bark. You put some dots here and there. Now it's up to you as the artist as to whether or not you're going to add color to it, because it looks really cool just like this. But you can make it brown, two different shades of brown, so that it might look much more like the actual ponderosa pine bark. Maybe you'll do it pink and orange, fluorescent. It's really up to you. All right. Good job relaxing your brain. All right. Our wood piece is dry. I like the way it looks just like this. I think what I like to do is add a little bit. What do I want to do here? I want to add some extra circles, and I'm just going to let my brain go free, but add a little bit more neurographic aspect to this. So I think I'm just going to fill in some circles here and there, and probably maybe put a circle or two inside here. We'll see. We'll just see what happens. Creating circles over and over and over and butting them up against one another is definitely a neurographic technique. You could fill this whole page with just tiny little circles and you'd be good to go. But it's fun to bring these circles into other pieces sometimes. So just do whatever feels right to you. And on this one, my eye wants to bring in a little bit more of that green to these outer circles here and there. I'm liking the way that looks. And then back to our ponderosa pine bark, I'm using magenta and yellow and orange. I'm choosing to fill all those little holes with the magenta. And then I'll bring in some yellow, and I'll spread the yellow out here and there. And then I'll bring in some orange as well and some greens. I think I'll probably end up filling most of these little puzzle pieces of bark by spreading out the color throughout. It feels really, really good for my brain. Very relaxing. I love dipping the end of the pencil into the water because it's just almost like makes it a paintbrush. You can just sort of draw on the paint and it's very soothing. I did end up covering all of these pieces, and I left a couple of them pure black. I like that. Great job, my friend.